Three, two, one.
Hello and welcome to the One in Five podcast. I'm Harrison,
And I'm Priya.
and today's topic is Men's Mental Health Month, which is June.
June is the first month of freedom after the long haul through the school year for most of us. However, this exhaustion and the ensuing blur of a month often leads to us forgetting one crucial thing about the start of the summer. June is Men's Mental Health Month.
In today's episode, we're going to talk about and educate about the subject, and talk to a peer of ours about this issue and how it has impacted him. He is a friend of ours and a rising junior at John Burroughs School. In the past, the idea of having good health was primarily judged by whether or not you conform to gender roles assigned to you by your biological sex. For men, this gender role was based on stoicism, competitiveness, dominance, and aggression.
We should first take a moment to recognize that since psychology has a very white centered past, there's a good chance that we won't be able to speak to everyone's experience. There are many identities which will have different experiences than the information we researched, and we hope that we'll be able to provide broad enough information in this episode and hopefully get into more specifics in later episodes. So please send us your stories.
So, in the past, the idea of having good health was primarily judged by whether or not you conform to the gender role assigned to you by your birth sex. For men, this gender role was based on, quote, stoicism, competitiveness, dominance, and aggression, according to the American Psychological Association.
Because men are socialized or they're made to behave in a way that is acceptable to conform to this gender role, they're brought up to be self sufficient and independent. Though they may be very emotional and empathetic, their socialization often forces them to hide these facets in favor of a more traditionally masculine image.
Since everyone is trying to preserve this image, men often look around and see that no one is struggling, when in actuality, many are just below the surface. You can probably see how this is a vicious cycle.
According to an NBC article, which with all our other sources will be linked in the description, Boys' quote unquote cry for help is often disregarded as disobedience, rebellious behavior, or acting out. This is something that's more commonly known as male type depression. Boys and men struggling with their mental health often exhibit symptoms of irritation, frustration, aggression, risk taking behaviors, substance misuse, and even physical pain.
Since these symptoms aren't in line with what we commonly think of mental illness symptoms, say sadness, boredom, or lethargy, men's mental health and mental illness is often go undiagnosed.
This determination to remain within the constrictive borders of traditional masculinity can often begin to hurt those trying to be more masculine and those around them. This is where traditional masculinity crosses the line into toxic masculinity. Forcing yourself to man up rejects the acceptance of men's emotions, but also refuses to empathize with those who need it most.
This Men's Mental Health Month, let's reject the man up attitude. As a matter of fact, let's man down, embrace the natural fluctuation of our emotions, and allow ourselves to be vulnerable with those close to us. Do the same for those around you. Check in with your friends and family and let them know that you're here to support them through whatever they're going through.
And finally, I want to speak to the fact that I have male friends who will sometimes bottle up or ignore their emotions in favor of having a more unbiased point of view. While it's great to pursue objectivity, I want to remind anyone who does this to also take a moment to really feel their feelings. And I know that sounds stupid, but bear with me here. Trying to be constantly objective can also be a negative thing. It doesn't give you the grace to embrace your emotions. Deliberately setting aside some time to abandon an objective perspective and giving yourself that grace can work wonders for your mental health. So, something else I would encourage all of us to do is to give ourselves some time to process our emotions. We can always recenter ourselves in an objective perspective, but taking that time to feel our feelings will really allow us to become more empathetic human beings.
Okay, and as speaking as a man, I've felt that at times I've tried to disregard my own emotions. I felt because I haven't seen men around me express their emotions, that my feeling emotions is wrong. And I want to tell everybody listening that it's not wrong to feel emotions, regardless of who you are, of what your background is, and that you should allow yourself to feel what you feel.
I think we're going to jump into the interview now, and we have a friend of ours, Mark, who we're going to be interviewing today. So, if you're willing to speak to this, what is your personal experience with mental health?
My personal experiences with mental health. I don't think I've had a genuine relationship with like having a mental health issue. But I do have anxiety pretty often. And I do overthink a lot. Um, so that's sort of my thing with mental health.
Okay.
And how vulnerable do you feel being around your friends? Who are you able to be vulnerable with? And do you feel you also fall victim to the cycle of not being able to share your feelings with those around you?
Yeah, that's a good question. So with my closer friends, I definitely can sort of vent to them and talk to them about my feelings. However, that group is pretty limited. It's just like two people. It's literally just two people. And outside of that very close friend group, other miscellaneous friend groups, I guess you could call that. I don't feel very comfortable, opening up. Um, I also feel more comfortable opening up to my female friends than my male counterparts. So yeah, and of course my parents too.
That traditional masculinity differs from toxic masculinity, especially in your life.
I think traditional masculinity is a lot uh more about the roles that men can provide, especially for their families or for their communities and society. And I think most of it is pretty positive, and most of it's pretty like um, you know I feel like most of it, yeah, is pretty positive. But however, for toxic masculinity, it's just taking that traditional form of masculinity and putting it in forms where it shouldn't be, um, it shouldn't negotiate with that side. Like for example, like if you're talking about your feelings, or that could seen as non-masculine, or if you're even doing something like dancing, right, or doing ballet, that could be seen as non-masculine. So it's just like you're putting an expectation for men, which makes no sense at all, and it just has been like that for decades, and people just sort of abide to those customs.
Yeah, you actually have a very mature standpoint on that because based on a lot of the research we've done, you nailed it. That's exactly what the difference between toxic masculinity and traditional masculinity is, at least according to the research. Do you believe that there are other factors which have a greater impact on men's mental health?
Um, Well, I think having a circle of friends where you can rely on is definitely positive for your mental health. Trying to think of some other things. Um, like when you do something like perceived as non-masculine, to some people, they often like ridicule you for that. And that's like that ridiculing part is pretty damaging to men's mental health. As I mentioned before, if you're like a ballet dancer, right? And you tell that to a group of pretty macho guys, you're not gonna have a fun time. And so it's just like those tiny remarks, it really gets to you. It's pretty annoying. Yeah.
Do you think you act differently in public and at school than you do at home?
Oh yeah, for sure. I definitely do. Yeah, I do.
Is there like a disconnect between you who you are in public and who you truly feel you are? And that's just because like we know that according to some of the research we've done, that a big part of like mental health issues for men comes from code switching, which is something we're going to talk more about in a later episode, but just going off that.
Um, yeah, definitely. I guess when I'm outside my house, there's more of an expectation to dress more athletically, to dress more traditionally masculine. Um, and at home I just dress, however I want. Um, Also, there are some activities I enjoy that I don't really like showing off to the public. For example, like writing poems. That's I do that a lot at home. But if if some of my friends saw that, they would probably ridicule me for that, and because they would perceive that as like a feminine activity. Um, and yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And this is kind of going off that you might have the same response, but like, do you feel that maintaining your reputation or public appearance impacts your mental health? Like, do you feel that you have to prioritize one and sacrifice the other?
I think it's not just limited to men. I think everyone sort of has expectations put up, upon them to dress according to traditional, ways and you know and fit traditional gender roles. So I don't think it's just limited to men.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Um, that's more of like a code switching question.
Yeah.
Mhm. And how do you feel that if you were or have been in moments of crisis, you would ask or cry for help? Do you believe that society often disregards men's, especially, cries for help?
Yeah, I do think so. Could you repeat the first part of the question?
Yeah, of course. Do you feel that if you were or have been in moments of crisis, you would cry for help?
Um, depends how open I feel at the moment. As I said, I do have a close group of friends that I can talk to and vent to. Um, However, not everyone has that sort of group, and I'm extremely lucky to have that resource. Um, but I would assume that, most men wouldn't feel comfortable crying for help in times of crisis. I mean, especially if you're like if you have a family, you have, a lot of responsibility and um, people just tell you to shrug it off because you're the man of the family, right? So
All right. Um, what would you say to somebody struggling with mental health? And I mean, I guess we're specifically thinking of like males in your life. But this could be anyone really.
okay. Um, you just got to talk to people. I mean, you just have to let go of your ego and let go of your the thoughts about, trying to fit that traditional masculine role. And just let your tears flow and let your let your mouth move and express your emotions, right? Um, but I know that can be really hard for a lot of people because, their entire life they've been told that, you gotta man up, right? You gotta wipe your tears away, dust the gravel off your knee when you fall, right? Um, that's definitely not a common phrase. I don't know why I said that. No one says that. Um, uh, but yeah, and try to find a group of people that you can rely on and talk to.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. Do you have any other parting thoughts for the audience?
Um, I do not, but I wish the best for them,
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time,
Thank
Mark.
you for being here.
of
Thanks.
course.
So finally, we want to remind you guys to take some time to really feel your feelings and to man down and validate your and your community's emotions.
We wish everybody here a happy Men's Mental Health Month, or whatever remains of it when this video comes out. And we'd like to keep calling on you guys to pay attention to the issues in your community and the issues that men may be facing behind closed doors that you may not exactly see from them. Remember that you matter and all the feelings that you feel matter as well. And 1 in 5 signing off.